Allow me to welcome Mr. Musi Delele from and Heritage, and then we have, of course, we had.
I know. Importance of understanding your intervention, where our intervention is going to be, where their strategy is going to be. And for Angola, it was clearly identified by experts like yourself and civil society like yourself and private sector like yourself. And theirs was focusing on accelerating economic diversification. Very clear goal. The second thing was to limit their dependency on extractive sector, because they're oil-based economy, they needed to limit that. The third thing was to identify and focus on tapping other areas of intervention where they had comparative advantages. That was another focus. Where do we have those? Being able to participate in regional global value chains. They know, Angola knows that the CFTA is coming. They want to be prepared. They want to understand how to get into that regional value chain. And they understand more specific how to get in the global value chain. So these were very clear. You can see that they are very clear on what they want to achieve. Next page. Now, there were lessons learned and core policy lessons learned. And we've mentioned some of them throughout our presentations yesterday and everything else. One is that there needs to be vigorous institutional coordination, and it really does matter. It's not simply to tick the box. It is critically important that there is. And within that, it's important that this is a program that is implemented by all. Everybody feels they own it. So all the stakeholders are involved, all the partners are involved. And as a result of that, it was important to establish sort of two core structure. One at the technical level, where we looked at having technical committees, where we bring people together, the technical people can discuss things, and then very much at the steering committee level, where we had ministerial level, because we had over 10 ministries involved, and there needed to be constant discussion, collaboration, and discussion. And also, very importantly, is to identify focal points within each ministry, because all the ministries' focal points needed to know each other. They needed to have their phones on speed dial so that they can talk with one another continuously. And the steering committee and the structure was able to see and monitor whether things were going correct and to adjust as we're going along.
Vision 2030 is huge. It's economy-wide. In terms of projects underneath it, at one time, I think they were over 400. That's now something historical that I've learned as I came in. And I've been reduced now to just under 200, still a very large number. What we're doing now is that the Vision Secretariat, Vision Delivery Secretariat, are analyzing the data that is coming from the implementing agencies. Remember, Vision 2030 doesn't implement. They simply monitor and they use data derived from agencies and institutions that are implementing, ministries, other institutions that are implementing, and we do get their assessments, and sometimes we do they do some verification. I remember, for example, last week I was out somewhere in the coast, and there was a project they said was 80% complete, and when I got there, certainly some work had been done, but it's been a long while. So clearly there are areas that might require validation and so on. But overall, we're trying to get a single index that will tell us, are we 50%, 60%? That's what people are looking for. For now, we have variable indices. Well, how have we done on roads? How have we done on water? How are we doing on aspects of agriculture? So I do not have a comprehensive indicator I can give right now. But we are going to do a very realistic assessment of what has gone well and what has not gone so well, because we need to understand what has gone well, and we can do more of it as we look way beyond 2030, which we shall soon begin doing. And we shall also then have to question ourselves, why did we not get things right? Why did things not go so well? We are at a time now as we speak, when particularly food prices were quite high for various reasons, as people might know, sometimes they forget. We had COVID, and agricultural activities really did suffer that time. Then, and that was 2 years in a row. And then we had the drought, overarching drought. So our production levels were quite low, and so income too was also low because jobs were lost and so on. It's a combination with that and among other things that has created havoc for us. Now, of course, we're adding in Russia and Ukraine. Who knew that Russia and Ukraine would matter for us? And they're saying, well, all petroleum-based products, fertilizer, things like that, and oil and so on are affected. So prices have gone up very high. We also tax them heavily. That makes a bad situation even worse. Those combinations are short-term blips, are really not part of the long-term vision on this. And then we are hoping that as we analyze better and implement consistent policy, we will be able to weather these problems. They'll always come, but they shouldn't be as severe or as worrisome as this has been. So the outcome on status of Vision 2030 is still mixed, but just give me another month or 6 weeks perhaps, we will have some quantitative data that I would like to share. Vision 2030 is coordinating independent agencies that have a mandate and a budget to do what they're supposed to do, that read directly what the government policy is. They stick with the targets that they themselves agreed to achieve by 2030. And Vision is simply collecting this information. They cooperate quite a lot, so we don't have a big problem there. And sometimes using their own analysis and assessments, sometimes doing some topping up assessments, and trying to bring everything together. That is, it requires a lot of continuous interaction, and the capacity in Vision 2030 is small. Vision 2030 is a lean institution which relies on good analytics to come from the sectors, so that their work will be integrative, because it would then be based on good work from each of the agencies. That bit has not really come through well. And the budget allocation, we can overcome the lean institutional capacity limitations through a better budget, and we can then bring in people on short term and others. The human component is very important, and of course you can mechanize some of it. But they are doing a great job. A great job despite that. There's no one in that institution that is idle. And if we all worked like that, we would be very lean and very efficient institutions. I think that is what I see in Vision 2030.
Essentially, we're here because not particularly coming here at this point, but we've been coming to Kenya for the last 2 years, is to sensitize the government and the civil society and the private sector about our new index that we've developed, the Productive Capacity Index. And essentially what that is that it's we look at the ability of the country to produce goods and services. And we've been able to find an index, develop an index, a multi-dimensional index that actually measures it, because it's important to measure it. And what is measuring is not the output, it's measuring the input required to produce goods and services. So that's energy, that is human capital, that's natural capital, that's institutions, to mention but a few. And when you look at this, it also looks at that this has to be done, there has to be interconnection between all of these things. It's vital that you cannot be on a sectoral approach. You have for development, you have an integrated approach for development. So the idea is that this index over the years is that afterwards, based on the data we get, we are able to develop a gap assessment. What are the gaps and what are the constraints for an economy to move forward? And then after that, we develop a program of support to actually deal with those gaps and constraints. And here now we're at the stage where we presented the gap assessment and also the program of support. And this has been done in conjunction with Vision 2030 and also all the technical experts of all the different ministries and everybody else, because it has to be owned by the government. And now we're finalizing things so that we can start with the implementation process of trying to deal with some of those gaps and constraints.